Hi, Unicorn Babes. I'm here with another episode entitled Overcoming Biasness. I have a saying when it comes to people trying to sabotage your character. People who are trying to sabotage your present will always try to find a way to trigger you and blame your past on your reaction because they can't sabotage your future. And in some instances, they try to apply what they feel is necessary in allowing you to feel like you're on the wrong path, but you're the only one that knows that. So, not allowing that to stunt your growth and whatever you're trying to achieve in life should be a priority. Not letting your past define your personal growth is absolutely important because your past is pretty much part of your story. No one can go back in time and redo it, no one can go back in time and change it. However, we do have the power to change the outcome of things and how we view our next step in life. Never letting the negative responses distract you from your growth is absolutely important as well. And when it comes to overcoming biasness, it's not only looking into what other people are saying or doing, but taking off the title or the entitlement that is applied to you from that other person and reevaluating how you are handling yourself around this type of environment. Rather, it's something that is pulling you into a path that you are no longer interested in, or pushing you into a path that is completely off course with what you are trying to achieve. And a lot of times it's usually coming from the closest people to us. However, we have the power to make decisions for ourselves, and we have the understanding of getting our perspective aligned with our purpose and learning how to move forward that way. So, not allowing a no to define your actual purpose is a very tricky statement simply because a no can always mean not yet. When we look at certain descriptions on the task that is needed when we are moving forward in our personal development, we usually see what is needed, what is expected, and what is actually required in order to complete that task. So when it comes to a no, it could mean that you didn't have the necessary information that you may need, or the footwork that you may have to apply in order to show your due diligence in that path. So it's always a time to grow and never a time to stop and wonder. Searching for the good and outweighing the bad and overcoming biasness is really something that I look into a lot of the times because the good that you do can outweigh some instances that may be shortcoming. And an example of that is you may not get something done in a timely manner, but it is a very complete detail that you was exercising on, which is fine. And that gives us even a broader perspective of what something could be. So when something is a bad, it could turn into something good in the long run, as long as the description and the detail makes sense to the actual objective. I speak a lot on distractions because it is very, very important, um, especially in moderation. When you're overcoming biasness, distractions can definitely be, it could definitely be a hassle, pretty much because there is a root of surprise that is always hiding around a corner, and it's absolutely inevitable. However, when circumstances do come about and you are in a mode or you are focusing on something, this gives you the opportunity to outweigh the importance of some things. When it comes to personal development, overcoming biasness as far as the distractions that you may have come along your way, there are some necessary and there are some unnecessary distractions, but nonetheless, they do have to be addressed. Suppressing distractions will only make them louder, and it will cause you to try to reinform what you've already established with yourself as it pertains to something else that may throw you off course. So, concentrating on your goals is an important perspective to understanding biasness, because there may be some things that you can consider and some things that you may not have to consider when moving forward and decision making and development. So the biasness part in that is whether it is important a lot or whether it is necessary to the path that you want to take in life. It's absolutely understandable to take a break, to take a step back and reevaluate what your actual order is or what your actual task is that will measure up to your designation. So it could be something along the line of this is what you want to do versus this is something that someone else wants you to do. So it has to come a point in time where you are reaching into a logical understanding of the difference between the two, and that will allow you to understand how to move forward to your next task without really compromising what you already have in place just to suit someone else's interests, and the designation and understanding does not meet up at all. So, networking with people can be very tricky. A lot of people who network does come with an objective that they want to achieve or something that they've been working on, and they want to bring other people into their circle to get different perspectives on certain topics or certain um, information that may have been provided just to give more clarity. However, networking with people, a lot of people do have different points of views and different emotions towards certain topics. So you have to understand how you would want to lay that platform out and not being biased because those are the circle of people that you are networking with does not necessarily mean that you have to agree with everything that they're saying. Everyone is absolutely entitled to their opinion, but that doesn't mean people are necessarily wrong, and that doesn't mean people are necessarily right. It's just certain things works for certain people, and you can't be biased towards those people because they don't think like you, but they have a different perspective in how they view life because everyone's path isn't the same. So, title does not mean entitlement. And this is a huge, huge bias flag that is raised when it comes to titles and entitlement. And the difference of that is the title is what you've applied for, and the entitlement is what you think you should have. When you are working on your title, you are working towards a role, you are taking the necessary steps to achieve a certain goal. And the entitlement part is when you feel like it should be owed to you simply because you're interested in it, simply because you know certain things is, and not doing the work behind it, not doing the developmental portion behind that. It sends an entitlement gesture to situations when they haven't been working towards the title. And that is something that a lot of people struggle with, is that the title does not mean entitlement. Sometimes the title is just the representation, but the entitlement is what you either should have or what you are owed. And in most cases, it does go hand in hand, but in most cases, it's also through a underlining perspective of how it is distributed through different policies and different requirements. And a lot of people want to bypass that. A lot of people want to bypass that part. A lot of people want to bypass the hard work. A lot of people want to bypass the personal development. A lot of people want to bypass what it actually takes to be put in the position that they are working towards. And that is what really puts people in a really compromising position, simply because they are not willing to put the entitlement aside and actually become who they need to be in order to fill that void and to fill that room with what they think they can deserve. Transparency is also important. It overcomes the perspective of how people view you. If you have this gesture of feeling like you have to hide certain parts of yourself in order to be accepted, if you feel like you can't speak about certain things because you feel like you would be judged, that's being biased towards yourself. That's actually allowing other people to feel like you still haven't healed from that portion of your life, simply because you won't acknowledge it, simply because you won't speak on it, or if it is brought up into a topic, you are easily triggered. And that is something that I wouldn't want people to hold against themselves, because I believe transparency is absolutely important, especially in personal development and content creating. If you have a team of people who is working with you on whatever task you are interested in and you don't have any transparency, they don't know how to help you. If you don't have any transparency, they don't know what to look out for. They don't know how to handle a situation, simply because it's something that you withheld, and you're keeping that within yourself. And that can build resentment towards certain things, simply because you're not opening yourself to exploring, or you're shying yourself away from it because it may conjure up a uncomfortable feeling that you may have. And that's absolutely important, because that gives you an idea of something else that you can work towards to make yourself a stronger person. So the difference between being useful and being used is the same thing as being used and being loved. Being useful means that it can be reciprocated, it can be exchanged, it can be interacted. Being used is pretty much one sided, transactional, upon convenience. So when you look at the biasness of that, it can work on both sides of the scale. You can either be useful to some people, or you can treat people like they're disposable. You won't need them unless they are around or unless they're available. And that's pretty much biasness because of the title or entitlement that some people may have. They may think that they're supposed to do that. And majority of the time, a lot of people would agree with it, and majority of the time they wouldn't. And that's absolutely okay. It just depends on the situation with some people. Majority of the time, a lot of people have been useful, but none of that was reciprocated. A lot of the time, a lot of people have been used, and it can't be reciprocated simply because it was a one sided transaction or a one sided gesture. So, understanding that will allow you to focus on the decisions that you actually need to make sure that you are either being useful in a situation or you are just being used for the moment. Your flaws is absolutely a milestone. I laugh at that because I don't think a flaw is necessarily a flaw. A flaw is just a talent you just haven't been working on. There's always a room for growth. There's always room for understanding, and it's always depending upon the introduction of the situation. If it hasn't been introduced, then it won't be known. Um, Understanding that will actually allow you to check off something that you need to work on so your flaw can become your next strength. So, finding your euphoria and building the life that you want to live unbiased and unentitled, and everyone is entitled to live their life freely, but no one is entitled to tell you how to run your life. Rather, it's with or without biasness. And that's where I think personal development do draw a line in who you want to become versus who people expect you to be. Thank you for listening to Lady Ivy Media. Hope to catch you on the next one. Make sure you're good to yourself.